The Sith Lords were undoubtedly the most formidable threats the galaxy ever encountered. Their dark legacy stretched over millennia, with countless Dark Lords rising and falling, spreading despair and destruction. But where did it all begin? Who was the first to embrace the darkness? This story traces the origins of the Sith, delving into the early conflict between the Jedi and the dark side followers, long before the Sith themselves emerged. For thousands of years, these forces clashed, with the Jedi typically prevailing. However, some of the greatest threats came from within their own ranks, leading to internal wars like the First Great Schism, a precursor to many Dark Jedi rebellions. In 7000 BBY, a second schism occurred, marking the rise of a new generation of Dark Jedi who would eventually set the stage for the Sith Empire's birth, forging a path of shadow and destruction that would reshape the galaxy forever. But these Dark Jedi were placed, different from those who had come before. Unlike the Legions of Leto, they were committed to the dark side's utmost extremes, and they developed alchemical techniques that allowed them to infuse objects and beings with the dark side. In time, their alchemical practices developed into techniques for creating, shaping, and corrupting life, breeding abominations of nature they called Leviathans. When the Jedi Order learned of this, they agreed that these schismatics were a threat to life itself, and again they went to war. Unlike in the First Great Schism, the war with these new Dark Jedi was not won so easily. In fact, the Dark Jedi held out for a full century. This terrible war between light and dark, called the 100-Year. Darkness was hard fought by both sides, but in the end, the Jedi had the advantage. The war ended with the Battle of Korbos, in which all but a dozen of the Dark Jedi were slain. The Republic wanted the Jedi to execute the survivors, but the Jedi resolved to exile them instead, hoping the Dark Jedi would find redemption on some deserted rimworld. The Jedi marched their defeated foes aboard a galleon and shot it into the unknown. It's possible that they never made a worse mistake. These exiles were among the greatest of the Dark Jedi. Ajunta Pall, a master of the dark side, led a formidable group of exiled warriors to a world that screamed to those attuned to the dark side. Guided by the powerful alchemist Sorza Sin and brutal warlord Karnus Muir, they reached Korriban, home to the Sith, a race of red-skinned Force sensitives who embraced the dark side. Initially met with suspicion, Pall's overwhelming force display subdued the Sith, and they were brought to Zeost, their ancestral home. There, Pall confronted the Sith King Hakagram Grouch, demanding submission. When Grouch defied him, Pall defeated him swiftly, executing the king with his own weapon. This act of power not only solidified Pall's dominance, but also marked the birth of the Sith Lords. The exiles claimed the Sith Worlds, forming the first Sith Empire, where each member claimed a realm to rule, forever changing the galaxy's fate. Ajunta Pall, the Dark Lord, ruled with an iron fist from the dark world of Ziost. As the Sith Lords expanded their dominion beyond the borders of the Republic, their influence spread across the galaxy. Among them, Sorzu Sin stood as his loyal deputy, or Shadow Hand, while the other Sith Lords formed a council to govern their growing empire. On Ziost, they established a powerful stronghold and began their dark rituals. The Sith soon embraced their ancient traditions, forsaking the Jedi's ways, even abandoning the lightsaber in favor of alchemically forged swords. They uncovered Korriban's forgotten secrets, an ancient planet long thought to be a burial ground. Among the many discoveries, they found an artifact of immense power, a Rakatan star map. This relic, steeped in the dark side, became a key source of their power, deepening the shadow that already loomed over the Sith Empire. The Sith Lords claimed the valley, later known as the Valley of the Dark Lords, where they built a fortress as a refuge against potential Jedi attacks. Ajunta Pall, in his reign as Dark Lord, solidified his control and expanded the Sith Empire. While some Sith Lords, seeking vengeance against the Jedi, launched a premature assault on the Republic, others focused on amassing power and perfecting Sith alchemy, creating monstrous beings in the breeding pits of Ziost. During his rule, Ajunta Pall forged a deadly double-bladed sword. Crafted from black steel and cold to the touch, its edges rippling with shadow. He infused the weapon with his dark power, and it became legendary, revered by Sith purebloods as a sacred relic. Pall's sword was symbolized in a haunting Sith rhyme. I am that which grips the heart in fright, hearkens the night, and silences the light. After decades of rule, Pall met his end. Not at the hands of a Jedi or Sith enemy, but in a battle against an unexpected foe. Ajunta Pall's spirit later recounted the tragic fate of the first Sith Lords. Their empire, born from ambition and darkness, ultimately crumbled under the weight of betrayal. Envy and power struggles led to a violent conflict within the fortress on Korriban, destabilizing it and causing its collapse. Pall and his contemporaries met their end in the chaos, but their legacy endured. The Sith Empire, though shaken, continued to thrive as new Dark Lords arose. The fortress was never rebuilt, instead serving as a final resting place for those who fell. Ajunta Pall's tomb became the first in the valley, where his sword and those of his rivals were buried with him. Though long gone, Pall's name lived on, his power remembered by those who followed. Yet, his story did not end in death. Trapped between worlds, Pall's spirit remained bound to his sword, haunting the tomb on Korriban. Over the millennia, something unexpected began to stir within him, a deep sense of remorse for the devastation he had caused. As the Sith flourished across the galaxy, their founder, Ajunta Pall, found himself consumed by regret forever embracing the dark side. His suffering persisted until thousands of years after his death. The redeemed Revan arrived seeking Pall's sword. The specter of Ajunta Pall appeared to Revan, pleading with him to take the weapon and leave. But before parting ways, Revan suggested a path to redemption. Initially skeptical, Pall ultimately accepted Revan's counsel, abandoning the dark side and surrendering to the will of the Force. At last, Pall found peace, merging with the Force and ending his torment. The Sith Lords are often remembered as dark, menacing figures in black robes wielding red lightsabers. Yet, one of the most formidable Sith Lords in history remains largely overlooked. Exar Kun, who did not even carry the iconic red lightsaber, nearly brought about the destruction of both the Republic and the Jedi Order. The Jedi homeworld was reduced to ashes under his command, and he was directly responsible for the death of the Supreme Chancellor. Exar Kun, once one of the most formidable figures in galactic history, earned his place as a Dark Lord of the Sith after a fateful encounter. His journey began on the remote world of Dantooine, where a small Jedi enclave existed, home to revered Jedi Masters, including Voto Siosk Boss. A young Exar Kun, ambitious and curious, would eventually find himself caught in a fierce lightsaber duel with Ulic Qel-Droma. What began as bitter rivalry soon transformed into a powerful alliance after both men shared a vision, a mystical moment that set Exar Kun on the path to ultimate power. A vision of Marka Ragnos, the legendary Sith, bestowed upon Kun the title of Dark Lord, with Ulic as his apprentice. Together, they vowed to bring down the Republic and destroy the Jedi Order, marking the beginning of a new era of darkness. This was just the start of Exar Kun's dark journey, one that would shake the galaxy to its core and become a key chapter in the eternal saga of the Sith. In 4000 BBY, Master Boz was training a group of promising apprentices, the Cathar warriors Credo and Silvar, and the human Exar Kun. Each of them was talented in lightsaber combat and eager to learn, but it was Kun's relentless thirst for knowledge that stood out. His curiosity, however, often led him to dangerous territory, as he would secretly explore the Sith teachings hidden in his master's holocron. At that time, the Jedi Order had little understanding of the Sith, and the last Sith Lord they knew, Freedon Nad, had been dead for centuries. Yet, Exar Kun sensed that the Sith would soon return, and his obsession with understanding their ways grew stronger. Despite his master's warnings that his curiosity could lead him to the dark side, Exar Kun's potential as a student was undeniable. His force abilities were immense, and in a training duel, he even defeated Master Boss using the rare Jarkai technique, wielding 2 lightsabers against Boss's combat staff. After the incident, Exar Kun decided to leave Dantooine, feeling that he had learned all there was from his master. He set out for Onderon to research Freedon Nad and the Sith. His journey took him to Dexin, the moon of Onderon, where Nad's tomb had been sealed by the Jedi. What began as a search for artifacts soon turned into a deadly encounter with Nad's specter. Kun boldly declared his intention to destroy the Sith, but Nad promised to teach him their secrets and guide him to their homeworld. This led Kun to the Valley of the Dark Lords on Korriban, where the ancient Sith lay entombed. Nad tricked Kun into entering one of the tombs, collapsing it on him. As Kun lay dying, Nad revealed that the only way he could survive was by embracing the dark side. Though he initially resisted, the overwhelming presence of the dark side in Korriban broke him. He gave in, drawing power from the tomb, healing his wounds and awakening to an understanding of the Sith hieroglyphs on the tomb's walls. At first, Kun refused to acknowledge his descent into the dark side, but he ultimately followed Nad's guidance to journey to Yavin 4th, where the last Dark Lord of the Sith Empire, Naga Sadow, had hidden long ago. Upon arrival, Kun encountered the Massassi, the Sith warrior caste who had accompanied Sadow to the moon. Captured and brought to one of their temples, Kun was about to be sacrificed to a massive Sith worm. As death loomed, the voice of Freedon Nad reached out once more, urging Kun to embrace the dark side. Finally, Kun surrendered. Channeling his newfound power through an ancient Sith gauntlet, he defeated the worm, wiped out the Massassi, and destroyed Nad's spirit in a fit of rage. The surviving Massassi bowed to him, and Kun declared himself a Sith Lord. Staying on Yavin 4 for a while, Kun studied the ancient Sith artifacts and temples, mastering numerous dark side techniques, including Sith alchemy. As his power grew, he created terrifying new breeds of Sith spawn, such as the enhanced Massassi Berserkers and the deadly Tarrant Tech. Once he had exhausted the knowledge from Sadow's legacy, he left the Massassi to build temples in his honor. Returning to the Republic, Kun learned of Ulic Keldroma, another fallen Jedi who had joined a Sith cult known as the Krath. Believing the Krath to be threats to his power, Kun traveled to the Emperor's Teta system to eliminate Keldroma. The two engaged in a fierce lightsaber duel, but as the battle raged on, Kun's Sith gauntlet synchronized with an amulet Keldroma wore, summoning a vision of ancient Sith Lords. In this vision, Dark Lord Marka Ragnos proclaimed that Kun and Keldroma were destined to become the new Dark Lords of the Sith, ending the Sith's long dormancy and ensuring their legacy would endure. Marked with ancient Sith symbols, Kun and Keldroma united their forces. Keldroma set out to recruit the Mandalorians for war against the Republic, while Kun journeyed to Ossus, the Jedi homeworld. There, he secretly murdered Jedi Master Odan and seduced young apprentices with promises of power, leading some to Yavin 4th, where he turned them to the dark side with the aid of Sith spirits. Meanwhile, Keldroma and his Krath armies, joined by the Mandalorians, launched a devastating assault across Republic space. But as Kun prepared to join the war with his Massassi followers, he received word that Keldroma had been captured in a failed attack on Coruscant and was to be put on trial before the Senate. In a galaxy dominated by Sith ambition, Exar Kun's actions on Coruscant stood apart from the norm. While most Sith would have abandoned their allies or waged war on their own terms, Kun made an unprecedented move. Taking his ship and a few followers, he boldly entered the Senate building, effortlessly paralyzing everyone inside with a mere thought. Ascending to the Chancellor's podium, Kun seized control of the leader, manipulating him like a puppet to deliver a passionate speech broadcasted across the galaxy. With fierce conviction, Kun proclaimed the rise of the Sith Empire, condemning the Republic as a failing system and announcing their intentions to overthrow it entirely. After silencing the Chancellor for good, Kun and his ally made their dramatic exit, leaving no doubt of their power or their future plans. Exar Kun's path was blocked by his former master, who tried one last time to redeem his fallen apprentice. But Kun, unwilling to accept the offer, launched a vicious attack. Their battle, reminiscent of their previous duel, was intense and evenly matched at first. However, Kun revealed a deadly innovation, a double-bladed lightsaber. With this new weapon, he overwhelmed and killed his master before fleeing Coruscant with his followers. Kun's invention of the saber staff predates Darth Maul by years, marking him as a pivotal figure in Sith history. After his escape, he commanded the fallen Jedi he had recruited to rise up, and across the galaxy, they executed their former masters in brutal attacks, bringing the Jedi Order to the brink of collapse. Hundreds of Jedi perished in a single day, crippling the Republic's military. With both the Jedi and the Republic reeling, Kun pressed on, directing craft leader Alima Keto to destroy the Kron cluster, causing the stars to explode and wiping out all life on Ossus. The destruction of the Jedi homeworld was Kuhn's greatest victory, but it would also be his last. After the destruction of Ossus, the Republic Navy launched a fierce counterattack, systematically dismantling the Sith fleets. Ulic Qel-Droma, now redeemed, rejoined the Jedi, and most of Kuhn's followers met their end. With only the Massassi left, Kuhn retreated to Yavin Fort, where he began a dark ritual aimed at achieving immortality, forcing the Massassi to sacrifice themselves in the process. The ritual sent out a catastrophic wave, burning the moon and leaving no survivors. By the time the Republic arrived, Yavin was lifeless, and Kuhn was presumed dead. However, his spirit endured, immortalized by the ritual, lingering in the Great Temple for millennia, even surviving beyond the reign of Darth Sidious. Ultimately, it was Luke Skywalker who brought an end to Kuhn's lingering presence. Though his physical form was destroyed, Exar Kuhn's legacy was profound, not in his survival, but in the near devastation he brought to the Republic, and the way he reshaped the Sith Order, leaving a lasting impact on galactic history. After the death of Marka Ragnos, a power vacuum engulfed the Sith Empire. Two Sith Lords, Naga Sadow and Ludo Kresh, vied for the position of Dark Lord, each claiming the title for themselves. Their rivalry was fierce, and both brought down the once glorious empire. Ragnos, who had ruled from 5100 to 5000 BBY, had brought stability to the Sith, ending centuries of internal strife. Under his reign, the Sith Empire had prospered, maintained by political maneuvering. Ragnos' reign marked the height of Sith power, with notable figures like Naga Sadow, a descendant of the original Sith Lords, and Ludo Kresh, a steadfast traditionalist. However, after Ragnos' death, their ambitions would lead the Sith Empire to its inevitable fall. After the death of Ragnos in 5000 BBY, the Sith Empire found itself at a pivotal moment. Two powerful Sith Lords, Ludo Kresh and Naga Sadow, emerged as rivals, each with a differing vision for the future of the Empire. Kresh, determined to preserve the Empire as Ragnos had built it, clashed with Sadow, who sought to expand the Sith's influence once more. This rivalry intensified, especially after Ragnos' death, with both Sith Lords vying for the coveted title of Dark Lord. The conflict between them began almost immediately, with Sadow arriving late to Ragnos' funeral, only to find Kresh already leading the proceeding. Their brief moment of civility ended as soon as the tomb door closed, and they engaged in a fierce duel for supremacy. However, their battle was interrupted by the sudden appearance of Ragnos' specter. The Dark Lord's ghost warned them of the critical crossroads the Sith faced, and urged them to choose their battles wisely if they hoped to ensure the survival of the Empire. With a final ominous warning, Ragnos faded, leaving his would-be successors to continue their struggle for dominance. In the depths of Korriban's ashen skies, a new twist unfolds as two rival Sith Lords, Sadow and Kresh, momentarily set aside their differences in the face of an unexpected arrival. The Starbreaker 12, a ship from the Galactic Republic, lands on the desolate planet, carrying two young scouts, Gav and Jory Daragon. Hailing from the Koros system, the Daragon siblings had tried one last desperate jump, only to find themselves, improbably, on the Sith homeworld. Their ship now captured. The Sith Council convenes, with Kresh viewing the arrival of the Daragons as a precursor to an invasion, urging the Sith to prepare for war. Yet Sadow, ever the schemer, sees the Daragons as a key to opening the galaxy for conquest, hoping to manipulate the siblings into leading the Sith back to the Republic. The stage is set for a clash of ambitions, as two Sith Lords with different visions for the future of their empire prepare to use the Daragons to further their own agendas. The Sith Council favored Kresh over Sadow, condemning the Daragons and seeking their total elimination. Yet, Sadow was not willing to relinquish his vision of expanding the Sith Empire. In utmost secrecy, he had agents steal advanced weapons from the Starbreaker 12 and, with his most loyal warriors, massacred the guards in the Sith Citadel's dungeons, freeing the Daragon. He ordered his forces to take the Daragons to his fortress, then betrayed Lord Simus, framing the murder as a Republic attack by planting the stolen blasters at the scene. The Council, furious over Simus' death, fell for the trap, interpreting the raid as the Republic's doing. Sidious manipulated the outrage, swaying the majority of Sith Lords to his side and proclaimed himself Dark Lord of the Sith, immediately preparing for war. In secrecy, he began training Gav Daragon while conspiring to steal the Starbreaker 12 and leaving evidence of his involvement for Kresh to find. Upon discovering the theft, Kresh, with his loyal Sith Lords, attacked Sato's fortress, bombing it from the skies in an effort to crush him once and for all. As the fortress crumbled around them, Naga Sato urged Jory Daragon to escape in the Starbreaker 12. She complied, unaware that Sato's agents had secretly attached a homing beacon to her vessel. As Jory fled back to the Koros system, Sidious unleashed his hidden fleet, catching Ludo Kresh's forces off guard. In a brilliant turn of events, Sidious commanded the Masasi warriors, whom he had long treated with respect, to betray their lords. They rose up, taking control of the ships and destroying Kresh's flagship. With his enemies seemingly vanquished, Sidious prepared his fleet for the next phase of his plan, following the Starbreaker 12 to the Republic and igniting the Great Hyperspace War. Without warning, a Sith armada struck the Koros system, assaulting all 7 of Empress Teta's worlds. Sidious sent Gav Daragon, now skilled in the Sith ways, to lead the charge against Sinagar, while the main Sith fleet advanced towards Coruscant. The overwhelming power of the Sith forces crushed the Republic defenses, allowing Sith flotillas to attack Metelos, Shakin, and Basilisk. Despite the relentless onslaught, Empress Teta, aided by Jedi Master Uru, Jedi Knight Odan and Jory Daragon, managed to turn the tide, securing victory at Kirik and then joining the fight above Sinagar. Jory found herself face to face with her brother as he led the Sith forces through the city. She managed to make him realize the error of his ways, causing him to retreat to his ship and return to his master. Meanwhile, the Sith leader was orchestrating the attack from a meditation sphere above the red supergiant Primus Galud, where he created powerful illusions that made the Sith appear more formidable than they were. However, when Empress Teta drove the Sith from the Koros system, Gav's return to Primus Galud disrupted the Dark Lord's concentration. This shattered the illusions, enabling the Republic forces to strike back. Realizing the situation was dire, the Sith commander ordered a retreat, but Empress Teta's fleet followed, forcing him to flee to his battleship and destabilize Primus Galud using a Sith weapon. In the chaos, he abandoned Gav to die, a betrayal that spurred Gav to send the Republic the coordinates to Korriban, warning them of the impending disaster. As Naga Sato fled in disgrace, preparing to regroup, he was confronted by a fleet waiting for him above Korriban. After the betrayal at Kar Shian, Ludo Kresh emerged, having survived and taken control of the Sith Empire in the absence of Sidious, declaring himself the true Dark Lord. When Sato's fleet returned from the core, Kresh's ships launched an attack. Despite the Empire being under grave threat, the two rivals clashed in a furious battle, wasting what remained of the Sith fleet. In the heat of the conflict, Sidious ordered a damaged battleship to crash into Kresh's flagship, bringing both ships to ruin. Kresh was finally slain, but Sidious's triumph was short-lived. As Empress Teta and the Republic Navy arrived, they decimated the remaining Sith forces. With no time to savor his victory, Sidious fled aboard the Corsair, leaving the system in his wake. At Korriban, the Republic completed its destruction of the Sith fleet, marking the end of the Great Hyperspace War with a decisive Republic victory. However, the campaign did not stop there. Over the next 2 years, the Republic and Jedi Order relentlessly advanced, systematically eradicating the Sith across their empire under the command of Supreme Chancellor Poltimo. The Sith, from priest to slave, fought to the bitter end. But by the conclusion of the campaign, every planet within the Sith Empire was obliterated, allowing the Republic to claim a final, unchallenged victory. Revan, a name that echoes through the halls of Star Wars legend, is beloved by fans for a multitude of reasons. His first appearance in Knights of the Old Republic marked the beginning of his legendary status. Often considered one of the most powerful Force users to ever live, Revan stood out for being a rare figure who straddled the line between both the Jedi and the Sith. However, it's not just his power that makes him memorable, but his story and the choices he made. Choices that defy simple categorization. In 3964 BBY, as the Mandalorians waged war on the Republic, the Jedi Council chose to remain neutral. A group of Jedi, led by the man known as the Revanchist, disagreed and decided to fight for what they believed was right. Despite the Council's opposition, they set out to prove that the Order had to act. This defiance eventually led them to the devastated world of Cathar, where they encountered a Mandalorian mask in the sand. This mask, however, was no mere artifact. As the Revanchist touched it, he and his followers were struck by a vision that would change everything. Being a Star Wars fan without having heard of his name or seen his iconic mask is nearly impossible. Revan is adored for many reasons. He first appeared in Knights of the Old Republic as a self-insert for the player, but what truly elevates him is his status as one of the most powerful Force users in history, considered among the greatest Jedi and Sith. But it's not just his power, it's who he was and the extraordinary choices he made that define him. His story is as intriguing as it is complex. In 3964 BBY, when the Mandalorians launched a devastating assault on the Republic, the Jedi Council chose to stay out of the war, leading to outrage among some Jedi. A group of rebels, led by the Revanchist, defied the Council, aiming to prove they had to act. The Council opposed them fiercely, even attempting to capture them. On the desolate world of Cathar, the Revanchists discovered a Mandalorian mask, and as they stood on that forsaken beach, they all experienced a shared vision through the Force. Through their vision, they witnessed Mandalorians under the command of a ruthless leader force the Cathar into the sea, massacring them in an unforgivable act that left the Council shaken. Only one Mandalorian dared to stand against this atrocity, the same one whose mask the Jedi had found. The leader of the Revanchists claimed the mask, swearing never to remove it until order was restored in the galaxy. It was in that moment that he took on the name Revan. The Jedi Master sent to Cathar chose not to arrest the Revanchists, and the Council reluctantly gave them sanction. Though the Council refused to declare war, Revan's right-hand man began recruiting Jedi to their cause, including a gifted young knight named Mitra Surik. Revan and the Revanchists became Jedi generals, leading the Republic's forces in a campaign against the Mandalorians. After a decisive victory on Duro, the Supreme Chancellor appointed Revan as Supreme Commander, putting a third of the Republic military under his command. The tide of the Mandalorian Wars began to turn in their favor, with Revan, Malak, and Mitra becoming renowned for their roles. But Revan's brilliance as a strategist surpassed his companions. He understood the true power of the Republic's industrial might and wielded it unflinchingly, even willing to sacrifice entire planets to ensure victory. As the wars dragged on, he began to compromise his morals, leaving entire populations to perish in the pursuit of crucial victories, matching the brutal tactics of his enemies blow for blow, and it worked. Under his leadership, the Republic achieved the impossible. They repelled their adversaries and mounted a counteroffensive, even invading enemy territory. They reclaimed planets that had fallen to the enemy early in the conflict and brought the fight straight to their homeland. These campaigns, though costly, shattered the enemy's war machine. By the time the final blow was ready, he devised a masterful trap on a distant world, a place forbidden to the enemy, where he uncovered forbidden knowledge that began to draw him towards the dark side of the Force. Alongside his trusted ally, he found evidence of an even greater threat lurking in the unknown regions. And so, a powerful fleet was assembled, with a secret weapon prepared, all in preparation for the decisive confrontation that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The Mandalorians couldn't resist Revan's trap, and under the command of their leader, they attacked Surik's fleet with all their remaining strength. But Revan and Malak had a plan of their own. They arrived with another fleet, forcing the Mandalorians into a battle on two fronts. Malak and his forces held the Mandalorians in place, while Revan boarded their flagship. There, on the bridge, Revan fought Mandalore, the Ultimate, in a fierce duel and emerged victorious. He took Mandalore's mask, preventing the Mandalorians from choosing a new leader, before ordering Surik to activate the mass shadow generator. The superweapon created a gravitational anomaly that destroyed Malachor, killing thousands in the process. Warships from both the Republic and the Mandalorians were pulled into the planet's destruction. The aftermath left Malachor a wound in the Force, and the surviving Mandalorians surrendered. Revan had them disarmed and scattered, breaking them into warring clans without their leader's mask. The Republic triumphed in the Mandalorian Wars, but Revan, faced with the dying words of Mandalore the Ultimate, learned of the Sith manipulation that had set the war in motion. His worst fears had come true. Revan and Malak ventured into the unknown regions, driven by the pursuit of answers, only to uncover the terrifying truth: the true Sith. A dark empire waiting to strike at the heart of the Republic. This threat, beyond comprehension, promised not only the Republic's doom but the end of all life. While others might have succumbed to despair or led a futile stand, Revan made a choice no one before him had dared. Believing the only way to ensure survival was through transformation, he embraced the dark side as a tool, not as a force that consumed him. Thus, he became Darth Revan, and alongside Malak, declared themselves the Dark Lords of the Sith, setting in motion a destiny that would forever change the galaxy. Determined to stop the true Sith at any cost, he embarked on a journey across multiple planets, accompanied by the newly constructed assassin droid HK-47. From Dantooine to Tatooine, Kashyyyk, Manayan, and Korriban, they secretly uncovered ancient Rakatan star maps, each one a crucial step towards locating the ultimate weapon, the Starforge. Hidden deep within the unknown regions, in the ruins of the Rakatan Infinite Empire, they found the Starforge, a colossal space station built millennia ago. This ancient weapon had the power to consume entire stars, channeling the darkside's energy to forge endless armies and fleets. Revan harnessed its might to create a powerful military force composed of warships, advanced Sith fighters, and legions of war droids, setting the stage for a new Sith Empire. With a sudden, brutal strike on Republic shipyards, Revan and his ally Malak swelled their ranks, drawing in many disillusioned Republic forces. This act sparked the Jedi Civil War, a conflict that would rage for 3 years. Despite his reliance on the Starforge, Revan sought to maintain strategic control, capturing key worlds and shifting much of the War Machine's production to his newly established empire. Yet, his true goal was the fall of the Jedi. He opened a Sith Academy on Korriban, turning captured Jedi into dark disciples and using the power of the Starforge and Treyas Academy to corrupt them, pushing his vision closer to reality. Revan saw the shattered world of Malachor as an opportunity, a place where the horrors of past atrocities would drown anyone who stepped on it, quickly turning Jedi to the dark side. While it might seem odd given that Revan was said to never fully fall to darkness, his actions were not driven by a thirst for power, but by a deep understanding of the true Sith. Malachor, with its wounds in the Force, was a source of strength for the Sith, and Revan, having witnessed the unpreparedness of the Jedi in the Mandalorian Wars, knew that a new war was on the horizon. He believed that the Jedi would inevitably become Sith in this coming conflict, so he took it upon himself to ensure they joined his side. Jedi fell in droves, either succumbing to the dark side or being destroyed. As Revan transformed the Republic into his own empire, he had those he deemed destabilizing forces removed, either through his own hands or his assassins, including the cold-blooded HK-47. On the battlefield, Revan's tactical genius outshone the Republic's forces, and the only reason they survived was due to the efforts of Bastila Shan, a young Jedi with the rare ability of battle meditation, keeping the Republic's hopes alive just long enough to stave off Revan's total victory. The Jedi Civil War was unfolding just as Revan had planned. Revan's plans were brought down by a force he failed to anticipate: his own apprentice, Malak. Once loyal, Malak harbored deep resentment and even challenged Revan for control over the Sith. Their duel left Malak scarred, but the seeds of betrayal were sown. In 3957 BBY, the Jedi trapped Revan, luring him into a battle where Malak seized his moment. While Revan was distracted, Malak ordered his ship to fire on his master's flagship, leaving Revan seemingly dead. Yet, Revan survived, gravely wounded but rescued by Bastila Shan. The Jedi Council healed him, erasing his past and giving him a new identity as a soldier in the Republic fleet. Retrained as a Jedi, Revan, with Bastila and a new crew, set out once more to defeat Malak, now the Dark Lord of the Sith. His story is one of a fallen hero turned Sith who eventually returns to the light. In the shadows of Revan's legend stands a figure often overlooked: Darth Malak, his former apprentice turned rival. Though Malak walked beside Revan from the very beginning, surpassing him in darkness, many fans remain unaware of his legacy. His journey took him further into the abyss than Revan ever dared, yet his name remains largely forgotten. Born on the planet Quelii, Alec lived a peaceful life until the Mandalorians arrived, ravaging his village. His world was destroyed, and the once quiet refugee found himself swept into the conflict. Discovered to be Force-sensitive, he was taken to the Jedi Enclave on Dantooine, where he quickly gained recognition for his talents. Here, he formed a close bond with another promising trainee, a man who would come to be known as Revan. Revan and Alec, both noted by their masters for an unquenchable thirst for knowledge, quickly rose to the rank of Jedi Knight. As the threat of the Mandalorians spread across the galaxy, they advocated for the Jedi Order to intervene. However, when the Jedi Council chose to remain neutral, Revan and Alec broke away, leading a group of Jedi known as the Revanchists to support the Republic. Forced into hiding, Alec adopted the alias Captain Malik as a Republic Navy officer, a name he would later keep. After uncovering the Mandalorians' genocide of the Cathar, the Revanchists were granted official recognition, becoming Jedi generals in the Republic military. Revan and Malik, now Supreme Commanders, each led a third of the Republic's forces in a relentless counteroffensive, pushing the Mandalorians out of Republic space. While Revan's tactical genius was unmatched, Malik, with his blunt and aggressive style, gained fame for his charisma, proving that while Revan was the better strategist, Malik's leadership was undeniable. During the Mandalorian Wars, one towering warrior became known for personally visiting Jedi enclaves, persuading young students to join the front lines, assembling a force that would one day follow him into shadow. On the battlefield, he and his closest ally formed a perfect balance, one a strategic master, the other a relentless force of nature, charging headlong into combat. His strength was legendary, his skill with a blade unmatched, and many enemies learned too late that brute power could rival careful planning. Yet as their victories mounted, their sense of restraint began to fade. Entire sectors were sacrificed for tactical advantage, their moral compass eroding in silence. They drove the enemy from strongholds, clashed with famed commanders, and shattered armies, culminating in the final and devastating confrontation at Malachor V, the battle that ended a war and began their fall. In the climactic final battle, the Republic's reinforcements were commanded by Malik, while Revan infiltrated the Mandalorian flagship, defeating Mandalore the Ultimate in a duel. The Mandalorians were crushed, but Revan and Malik had a greater mission ahead. Following a trail of markers from the Treyas Academy on Malachor, the pair ventured beyond the known galaxy, uncovering a dark and ancient threat. In the unknown regions, they confronted the remnants of the original Sith Empire, led by the fanatical True Sith cult, who had been quietly plotting their revenge against the Jedi and the Republic for generations. After manipulating the Mandalorians to weaken the Republic, these Sith were ready to strike. However, Revan refused to allow them to succeed, despite the overwhelming power and destructive capabilities of the true Sith. Knowing that the Jedi could not win such a war without sacrificing their connection to the Force, and seeing many of the Revanchists fall to the dark side, Revan and Malik hatched a radical plan. To defeat this dark threat, they would embrace the dark side themselves, becoming Sith Lords and corrupting what remained of the Jedi Order. In the looming conflict, it was inevitable that the Jedi would fall to the dark side, transforming into Sith. Revan and Malik, determined to seize this fate, fully embraced the path to darkness. They saw the Republic as a system in need of corruption, believing it must evolve into an empire to withstand the Sith threat. This ambitious vision required a precise strategy, one rooted in the discoveries they made during the war. While engaged in the Mandalorian Wars, they uncovered ancient ruins scattered throughout the galaxy, hinting at a once great empire and, more importantly, a superweapon known as the Starforge. These ruins contained star maps, broken yet valuable devices that pointed toward the Starforge's location. Revan and Malik pieced the maps together and located the weapon above Rakata Prime, a forgotten world in the unknown region. They seized control of the Starforge, a colossal factory capable of producing endless battleships through the power of the dark side. With the Starforge in their grasp, Revan set it in motion, constructing a fleet of infinite power. Together with Malik, they gathered their followers and declared themselves Dark Lords, founding a new Sith Empire. Their reign sparked the beginning of the Jedi Civil War, a dark chapter in galactic history. The Republic had splintered, with many flocking to the Sith Empire. while the remainder struggled against Revan's unstoppable fleet. As both Revan and Malak fell to the dark side, Revan took the title of Sith Master, while Malak reluctantly became his apprentice. However, as the Jedi Civil War raged on, Malak's jealousy towards his former ally grew. The power of the Starforge began to twist Malak in ways he hadn't anticipated. While Revan viewed the dark side as a tool to wield, Malak embraced it fully, spiraling deeper into its corruption. 2 years into the war, Malak's envy reached a breaking point, and he attempted to kill Revan and claim the title of Dark Lord for himself. The attempt failed, leaving Malak scarred and Revan's mercy intact, but this proved to be a costly mistake. A year later, when Revan's flagship was ambushed by Jedi, Malak ordered a fatal strike on the bridge, hoping to destroy both Revan and the Jedi. The flagship was destroyed, and while Revan's death seemed certain, Bastila Shan survived, leaving the fate of the Dark Lord uncertain. Malak ascended to the title of Dark Lord, taking control of the Sith Empire after the fall of his former master. The Jedi believed his victory over Revan would fragment the Sith, seeing him as the weaker force. However, they were gravely mistaken. With a vast fleet at his command, Malak launched an unstoppable campaign against the Republic, unprepared for the magnitude of his assault. Lacking the subtlety and tactical brilliance of his predecessor, Malak compensated with sheer force and relentless ambition. Rejecting Revan's vision of subtly subjugating the Republic, he chose brutal conquest, fully exploiting the power of the Starforge. As his control over the station grew, so did his dark side abilities, far surpassing those of Revan. In physical strength and mastery of the dark side, Malak became an equal to his former master, matching him in lightsaber combat. His transformation into a Dark Lord marked not just a shift in power, but an unprecedented rise that set the stage for the galaxy's doom. Malak's greatest strength was drawn from the Starforge, a powerful dark nexus that amplified his abilities. Under his command, the Starforge produced 3 times more Sith destroyers than before, and Malak exploited its corrupting influence in ways his predecessor had never imagined. He imprisoned captured Jedi and drained their power to bolster his own. But his reign was short-lived. Revan, whom Malak had attempted to kill, survived and was brought back to the light by the Jedi Council. Together with his ally, Bastila Shan, Revan hunted down the Starforge, defeating Darth Bane, Malak's apprentice, along the way. Malak captured Bastila and turned her to the dark side, declaring her his new apprentice. However, Revan followed him to Rakata Prime, where he confronted Malak during an assault on the Starforge. In their final battle, the redeemed Revan triumphed, ending Malak's rule and fading him into memory as second to his former master, even in death. In the galaxy's distant past, the Sith Lords' reigns were often short-lived, with empires rising and falling like the ebb and flow of dark tides. Few were able to maintain control for long, as the Sith Empire was known for its instability. However, some Sith Lords surpassed mere conquest, focusing on the nuances of governance and manipulation, and ultimately gaining far more power than their aggressive predecessors. One such figure was a Dark Lord from the First Sith Empire, who played a pivotal role in ushering in the Golden Age of the Sith. Known for his cunning and political prowess, he solidified his place in history as one of the most influential Sith Lords. His story unfolds amidst a backdrop of a once expanding empire, marked by the rule of powerful figures, whose ambitions spread across hundreds of worlds, shaping the galaxy's fate. Yet, as time passed, the Empire began to stagnate, paving the way for new challenges. This tale of dark ambition and shifting power reveals the intricate balance between brutality and strategy that defined the Sith's legacy. In the heart of the Stygian caldera, a nebula ring that disrupted hyperspace travel, the Sith Empire found itself at a standstill. After fully conquering the worlds within, the Sith had no further path for expansion, leading to internal instability. It was during this uncertain time that a figure of power was born, Marka Ragnos. His obsidian black skin, a rare omen of greatness among the Sith, and his lineage as a half-breed, descended from the exiled Dark Jedi, made him stand out from his peers. Rising swiftly through the ranks, Ragnos soon became a Sith Lord, learning the deepest secrets of the dark side. By 5100 BBY, when the reigning Dark Lord died, Ragnos and the powerful Lord Simus vied for the throne. After a fierce duel in the Valley of the Dark Lords on Korriban, Ragnos emerged victorious, decapitating Simus, whose head was preserved through Sith alchemy in a crystal sphere. With Simus rendered powerless, Ragnos claimed the title of Dark Lord and set about restoring the Sith Empire to its former glory. After years of stagnation, the Empire teetered on the brink of collapse. With no enemies from the outside, the Sith Lords began to turn on each other, a dangerous pattern that could tear the Empire apart. But Ragnos, ever the strategist, refused to let that happen. Before the infighting could escalate into full-blown civil war, he swiftly dealt with any potential challengers to his rule, branding them enemies of the Sith Empire. To quell his subjects' thirst for conflict, he orchestrated ruthless campaigns that pitted them against each other, uniting the Empire against small rebel factions instead of destroying it from within. With his rivals eliminated, Ragnos turned his attention to the lesser Sith Lords on the Council, who plotted his assassination. In his usual manner, he sowed discord among them, watching as they turned on each other until none remained to challenge him. Finally, Ragnos appointed new lords to the council, including his former enemy, Lord Simus, who would remain loyal to him for decades. As the Empire's ruler, Ragnos kept the council under his strict control, ensuring that no one would ever rise against him again. Marka Ragnos, the Dark Lord of the Sith, ruled with an unyielding grip, crushing all opposition and unifying the Sith Empire like never before. His reign, though harsh, ushered in the Golden Age, a time of unprecedented prosperity for the Sith. Over a century, he became one of the most formidable Sith to ever live, unmatched in his mastery of the dark side. With his alchemically enhanced sword, black scale gauntlets, and a powerful scepter that could absorb and wield the dark side, Ragnos was nearly untouchable. This scepter not only gave him control over non-force sensitives, but also allowed him to summon deadly bursts of dark side energy and even raise the dead. His empire, bolstered by his might, thrived as one of the most powerful in history, with the Sith Council leading the charge. However, a grave threat loomed, and the unthinkable soon threatened to unravel the Empire's power. A century after the rise to power of the great Sith Lord, the dark legacy of Marka Ragnos came to an end with his death, seemingly of natural causes. Ragnos had orchestrated the Golden Age of the Sith, consolidating power and shaping an era of dominance. Yet, his death left behind a vast power vacuum, igniting a fierce struggle for control among the Sith Lords. Naga Sadow and Ludo Kresh were quick to seize the opportunity, plunging the Sith Empire into chaos. The rivalry between these two dark forces unraveled the very empire Ragnos had built, tearing it apart in less than a year. But even death was not the end for Marka Ragnos. His spirit remained tethered to the material world through his scepter, lingering as a specter. Though he could manifest to warn the Sith Lords during his funeral, he was powerless to stop their infighting and the collapse of his once mighty empire. The remnants of Ragnos' presence would continue to echo through the ages, summoned in later millennia, though his influence would be forever diminished. In 3996 BBY, two mighty Sith amulets enabled a vision where Marka Ragnos, the ancient Dark Lord, appeared to Exar Kun and Ulic Kel Droma, bestowing upon them the title of the new Dark Lords of the Sith. Fast forward nearly 4,000 years, Ragnos' spirit resurfaced to confront Darth Plagueis, who, upon visiting Korriban, dismissed the ancient traditions of the Sith in favor of a more scientific approach to the dark side. Enraged by this defiance, Ragnos declared Plagueis unworthy, only to be mocked in return, causing the long-dead Dark Lord to retreat to his tomb. In 14 ABY, following the extinction of the Sith at the Battle of Endor, a cult known as the Disciples of Ragnos formed, led by the Dark Jedi Tavion Aximus. Their goal was to resurrect Marka Ragnos and usher in a new golden age of the Sith. After gathering immense dark side energy from across the galaxy, Aximus traveled to Korriban to perform the ritual, allowing Ragnos' spirit to possess her body. However, Jedi Knight Jaden Korr confronted the possessed Aximus, and after an intense battle, managed to destroy the scepter that held Ragnos' spirit, thus ending his reign once and for all. Despite the later rise of Sith empires, the era under Ragnos' rule would remain unparalleled in its stability and power. In a recent story, we explored one of the most notorious Sith Lords of the ancient past, a figure whose presence was like a gaping wound in the Force, capable of consuming entire worlds. But this Sith, while feared, wasn't alone in the galaxy's darkness during the Dark Wars. He was once allied with another formidable Sith Lord, a being known for his unwavering defiance of death, a Sith whose very flesh was a testament to his endless suffering. This was a being who had endured countless fatal wounds, his body covered in scars and burns, yet he continued to live, not through the power of healing, but through sheer willpower. Despite his injuries, his strength was unrivaled, an immovable force of pain and rage. Many believe this Sith was, in fact, the more compelling and deeply written of the two, a figure whose story deserves to be told. It was during the dark days of 3951 BBY that a ship crew from the Republic made a chilling discovery in the depths of space. They boarded a seemingly deserted Sith warship and found a single body aboard, a Sith Lord whose appearance was enough to shock anyone who gazed upon it. His flesh was cracked and gray, a grotesque landscape of burns and scars, while his bones had been shattered repeatedly, only to be forcibly reassembled each time, reflecting a never-ending cycle of suffering and survival. He had endured so many lethal wounds that the doctors could not pinpoint which one had claimed his life. But what truly terrified them was their conclusion. All of the Sith Lord's injuries had occurred before his death. They deduced that in his final moments, he had been in unrelenting agony. To understand his fate, we must go back. 45 years before the Dark Wars, during the Great Sith War, a man named Sion pledged loyalty to a powerful Sith Lord, aiming to establish a new Sith Empire across the galaxy. Though it was unclear if Sion had once been a Jedi, he harbored a deep hatred for them and sought out their destruction. As a Sith Marauder, a warrior devoted to combat and the enhancement of physical prowess through the Force, he chose to stand at the front lines of the war. His sole goal was to die in battle, to end his life in a blaze of glory against the Jedi. Yet there was one major flaw in his plan. He could not die. He was a master at hunting down Jedi, and though he often sustained severe injuries in his battles, he always managed to heal. Over time, his tolerance for pain grew, and he began to believe that he was indestructible, a force of darkness that no Jedi could ever defeat. But as the Republic triumphed over the Sith in the Great War, a Jedi finally managed to bring him down. Yet, death could not claim him. His belief in immortality was so strong that even as his body was consumed by agony, he rose up and killed the Jedi who had struck him. What once had been a desire for death transformed into an obsession with life, driven by his relentless hate and fury. In his pain, he found strength, using it to hold his shattered body together. For the rest of his days, he endured unbearable suffering. But to him, it was a price worth paying to continue his existence, forever filled with rage. He became known as the Lord of Pain, his very identity entwined with his suffering. The years following the Great War were marked by chaos and uncertainty, but he remained a constant, a symbol of the dark side's persistence. 30 years after the fall of a powerful Sith Lord, a new wave of chaos erupted across the galaxy. The Mandalorians launched a brutal assault on the Republic, nearly bringing the entire galaxy to its knees. Shortly after the Mandalorian Wars, a new threat arose. The Sith Empire, led by two former Jedi, sought to impose the same reign of terror. Among the chaos, a relentless warrior named Sion emerged. Feared for his brutal efficiency in hunting down Jedi, despite suffering fatal injuries time and time again, he would not be stopped, surviving through sheer rage and determination. When the Sith Empire crumbled, Sion witnessed the infighting that tore the Sith apart. Disgusted by the weakness he saw in his fellow Sith, he left Korriban. There, he met Darth Treya, who, seeing his potential, made him part of her Sith triumvirate. Alongside her and Darth Nihilus, Sion would go on to master his ability to resist death, using it as a weapon against the Jedi. Together, they formed an order of deadly Sith assassins, continuing the cycle of violence and vengeance across the galaxy. Sion, a feared assassin of the Sith, shared much in common with his contemporaries, particularly Darth Nihilus. These killers thrived on draining the Force from their targets, using it to enhance their own strength and track down their prey. Skilled in the art of stealth, they could cloak themselves in the Force, rendering them invisible until the moment of attack. Sion, who often led these deadly operations, was relentless in his pursuit of Jedi, never allowing any to escape. His prowess in hunting down individuals, sometimes even striking them down personally, made him an unmatched force. Yet a troubling issue began to emerge. The galaxy's Jedi were disappearing, leaving fewer and fewer to kill. After Nihilus consumed the planet Qatar, it seemed the Jedi were all but extinct. With their mission effectively complete, Cyan and Nihilus turned on their Sith leader, Darth Traya, stripping her of the Force. They believed they had ended her, but Traya survived, taking on the identity of Kreia. She fled, seeking out the Jedi exile, Mitra Surik. But Cyan, ever determined, also sought Surik, convinced that she was the last Jedi standing. He tracked her to the Republic warship, where he pretended to be dead, allowing the Republic to capture his ship. As Republic soldiers took him to the medbay, dozens of Sith assassins infiltrated the warship, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment arrived when Kreia, aboard the Ebon Hawk, secretly rescued Mitra Surik. This forced Cyan to break his disguise and launch an assault on the warship's crew. Cyan and his assassins seized control of the ship and fired upon the Ebon Hawk, but the freighter managed to escape, though badly damaged. The Ebon Hawk sought refuge at an asteroid mining station for repairs, but Cyan followed, relentlessly pursuing them.